Oh, wait a second, there he is.
Hi, Fred.
Hey, Jeremy, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Okay, how are things going in Colorado?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Surviving.
Surviving? Good. Ready for Pesach?
Yeah, and you've taken off your sweater, Jeremy.
Yes. It's quite hot in this apartment. It's not hot in Colorado in general. In this house, I mean. Hi, Judith. Lovely to see you twice in one day. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. And you can speak now because the video, you haven't turned the mute off.
Yes, right. Well, this will be more collaborative than Mishnah Club, which is pretty dictatorial.
No, but I think you're really good at answering the questions.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Because, Shy, you also could do it while you are having a screen share. Well, Shy hasn't figured it out. I listened to it the early morning, and he turns off his screen share to look in the chat.
Yes, it helps that I know how to use technology.
But yeah, I thought it's like, okay, let me just look at the chat. And he turns off the screen share. No, you don't need to do that, but.
That's funny.
But I understand. He gets over 100 people in the morning at 8:30 in the morning.
That's just Shy. I joke that Shy lives in a different social media world than the rest of us do, because he posts just a random thought that he just had in the shower or something, some random thing, and 1 million likes. It's just,
well, it's like him and Ethan. When Ethan did the section, it multiplied.
Right.
People just come out of the woodwork to listen to Ethan.
Yes, I mean that's for sure true. Yeah, the Mishnah diehards stayed for me.
Actually, I'll even grace you with the video.
Oh wow, I feel so honored here.
I know a lot of people will leave you at 9 to go to listen to Joey.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
He's doing it. He does it from 9 to 9:20.
Oh, got it. Okay, great. Well, that's not a problem.
I think we'll view it tomorrow anyway. So.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yes, I'm just making sure I have the things I need.
But where's all the people?
I don't know. People might be coming. I don't know. Just post on Facebook. I mean, the Kilat Hadar crowd is certainly smaller than the Hadar Institute crowd. So
Microscopic, it would seem to be. David Ingber's been teaching a class in Mishnah. Started last week.
Sorry, who is?
David Ingber, rabbi at Romemu.
Yeah.
So he's been doing a parak a day almost since last Monday, starting with brachot. He's such an amazing teacher. It's
Not bad.
Yeah, he went to. He's a good friend of my brother's. Actually, his twin is closer to him now, Adam. They were both big before David went to the rabbin to do that. They were both avid hockey players, and his brother's still a hockey player.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they would come in from Stanford.
There you go. Learn something new every day.
Yeah, no, because the whole family. He has 2 older sisters who would come in as well. So the family had been going there for a long time. There was a lot of families that took the train to go to school, high school.
To a model.
Because at that time, there weren't that many other schools.
Got it.
So you just, if you were interested, then this is what you did.
Oh, I think we'll give a couple of minutes for people to be a bit late. Where are you based, Judith? In New York?
No, I'm in Washington, D.C.
Washington. Okay, lovely.
So what did you think about Ethan and well, what and
Aviva?
yes.
About what?
Yeah, they put out their thought about Zoom Seder because everyone was asking them.
Yes.
I wouldn't ask him.
Well, he got a lot of questions. He put it out.
You're not going to like the answer.
No. So I didn't like the answer for a different reason.
Many years ago.
I didn't like the answer because I thought it was weak. I thought it just like reminded me of when I was growing up in New York, where people would, this is an old fashioned thing, where you would have your TV on a Shabbos clock. So the TV would turn on, and this is on Orthodox Judaism, they would turn on and they would all watch the TV on Chag and other stuff. And so.
Brilliant.
And everyone, and that was okay. And to me, that is not okay. You might as well just turn on yourself without doing that. So the whole spirit is missing. And that's what I think the Zoom Seders is. It's the spirit. It might be halakhically okay. It's just not in the spirit.
Right. I guess the difference is that putting the TV on is just in order to like watch the sports or whatever, as opposed to Zooming a Seder, which is a way to like help other people perform mitzvot. But yes, I 100% get that. Who is SC?
Oh, he looks familiar.
With a lovely background and no face.
It's a virtual background.
South Carolina.
Sorry, who is it?
I said it's the entire state of South Carolina.
That's what I thought. Does it look like that? Does the whole state look like that? I've never been to South Carolina. How you doing, Ben?
Doing okay. I left the city 2 weeks ago, first for my grandfather's funeral, and then from there I went out to Michigan. So I'm with my mom and my stepfather, and in a nice big house rather than New York apartments. I saw that you guys went to Colorado.
Yeah.
So you weren't afraid to fly with your young son?
Well, here's the thing: the airport was totally empty. Like there were literally more staff than passengers in the airport, and there were a total of 11 people on the plane.
Wow.
And like the only interaction we had with the stewards was to like they handed out Lysol wipes for you to wipe down the seats and everything. So like of all the forms of transportation one could take, it probably goes car, plane, everything else. So,
but how did you get there? You took an Uber there, and then I would be scared about that.
yeah, well, again, I think you probably have like Uber, plane, a car, like your own personal car, plane, Uber, then other things well further down. Because like if you just think about the volume of people going through a subway train, that's obviously much, much more than an Uber. But yes, we did take an Uber there. But yeah. Well, it was a week ago. We have no symptoms, so that's a good start. But we have been in quarantine since we got here. Just in case. I'd still love to know who SC is. Okay, great. Okay, well let's do some learning, I guess.
Okay.
Okay, great. So there's basically two parts of this, and the amount that we get through is a bit flexible depending on where people are excited about. There's the first, which is sort of a pretty brief historical overview situation of the four cups. just sort of explaining the two sources we're dealing with, the Mishnah and the Yerushalmi, the Talmud Yerushalmi in Pesachim. And then we'll go into the Yerushalmi Sugya, which sort of tries to unpack the possible meaning behind 4 cups, and gets you into some really interesting different models for the Seder and what we might be doing here. Some of which you might connect to, and some of which you might connect to less, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, does that sound like a plan? So really the question is, why are there 4 cups? The answer is actually incredibly boring, and the real answer. So therefore we're going to learn the Yerushalmi, which answers the question in really interesting ways. Okay, sounds good? Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And I should be able to even see the chat at the same time. Okay. Great. So the most important thing is the first thing, which is the incredibly boring answer. So here is the boring answer. Why are there 4 cups of wine? Basically, the question for the Mishnah is not why are there 4 cups of wine. The question is, why are there 4 and not 3? 3 would be a totally normal number of cups of wine to have at a fancy meal. You would have 1 with your appetizer course. Sorry, can everyone see the source sheet? Yeah. I can also share it with your emails, Judith. That's what you wanted? Yeah, sure. Actually, you know what? Let me just make it a link shareable so that you can see it straight away. Okay, so you should be able to see that right now. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So the question is, why are there 4, not 3? So the 3 cups, it would be totally normal to have a cup of wine with your appetizer course, a cup of wine with your main course, and a cup of wine with your dessert. That would be the normal way a meal played out. So the question for the Mishnah is, why is there a 4th cup? And that's, I've given you some little extracts from the Mishnah here to talk it through. So firstly, you can see that they use the cups as a framing device for the narrative of their Seder. But that's not exactly the same thing as saying, these are 4 mandated cups per se, they're special to Seder night. That's not the same thing. You'll see as we go through what I mean by that. So the first thing is the first Mishnah sort of gives you the requirement for 4 cups. Afilu ani shebi Yisrael lo yochal ad sheyasev. So even a poor person, they shouldn't recline until they shouldn't eat until they recline. Reclining here is the language for having a fancy meal, that you're lying back with servants bringing you stuff. V'lo yifchatu lo me'arba kosot shel yayin, and they should not have less than 4 cups of wine. V'afilu min hatam chui, even if they have to get this food and wine from the collection plate from charity funds. So this sort of makes it sound like the 4 cups of wine is sort of this mandated mitzvah for Pesach. But when you compare it to the first part about reclining is also not a mandated mitzvah for Pesach for the Mishnah. It's just the normal way one does a fancy meal. So it seems like the 4 cups of wine is also about having a fancy meal, which we can then prove a little bit more refine that as we go through. So then you see it sort of frame the various steps of their Seder. Mazgulo kos rishon, they mix for the leader a first cup. So the they there is the servants who are serving the meal. Fred, I know we did this the other day, so I apologize. Beit Shammai omrim mevarech al hayom v'achar kach mevarech al hayayin. Beit Hillel omrim mevarech al hayayin v'achar kach mevarech al hayom. There are 2 brachot you have to do over the wine. One of them is Mekadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim, and the other one is Borei Piragafen, and they just disagree about the order. So it's clear that the first cup goes with which ritual? Where you say, Mekadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim. Kiddush, great. Okay. The first cup goes with Kiddush. And Beit Hillel, as normal, carry the halacha, and this is how you do it. You do Borei Piragafen, and then afterwards you do another paragraph, and then you do Mekadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim. But the key point about this is this would be the same on any Yom Tov, right? It's irrelevant whether it's Seder night or Shabbat or Sukkot. It's totally irrelevant. You would certainly have your first cup for your kiddush. And either way, no matter which house you practice by, there would be an order as to which way you do the blessings. But that would be the same. It's not special to Seder night at all. Okay. Then continues on into the next cup. Mazgu lo kos sheni, Prina bel shoel, imadav vein aviv melamado, etc. The manish tana, etc. I've got these brackets here for no good reason. You can talk to me about it later. It's like a whole manuscript thing, which is not very interesting to get into right now. But the point is that this second cup comes with the meal, right? Like this is introducing the manish tana, and therefore the magid, and therefore after that the meal. That's what this is about. Okay, that's your normal cups of wine that you drink during the meal. Then keep on going through the chapter. Mazgula kos shlishi. Now he has the third cup. Uvarech al mazono, and you do birkat hamazon. So clearly you've already had the meal because that was the second cup. So now you're doing birkat hamazon on the meal. Birkat hamazon is always came with a cup of wine for the Mishnah and for the Talmud in general. Even today, many Sephardim always have a cup of wine with birkat hamazon. Many Ashkenazim, Seder night is the only time you do. But nonetheless, that's again a normal cup of wine. So you can already see that the first three cups here are just normal part of a Yom Tov meal, right? The first cup with Kiddush, the second cup with with the meal, and the third cup for Birkat Hamazon. So the only special one is the fourth one, and where does that fit with? Revi'i, the fourth cup, Gomer et HaHalel. You finish the Hallel, and you say upon it, i.e. the cup, Birkat shiur, the blessing of the song. Birkat shiur is some version of what we call Yishtabach, or the blessing at the end of Hallel, Melech Muhulal Batishbachot, something like that. It's a version of those words. The Yishtabach and Melech Muhulal Batishbachot at the end of Hallel are almost identical in their language. They use a lot of the same words. They're both sort of versions of this Birkat shiur, which at least on Seder night, it seems, came with a cup of wine, just like Birkat Hamazon and Kiddush came with a cup of wine. There's like an additional thing that you do Hallel and you do Birkat shiur, and therefore you also have a cup of wine for that bracha. Now this is unique to Seder because Seder is the only time you say Hallel at night. So this is certainly unique to Seder. The Mishnah then clarifies to you that the fourth cup is the only unique one. Bein hakasot ha'elu im rotzeh lishtot yishteh. Between any of these cups, i.e. cups 1 to 3, if you want to drink, you can drink. This is indeed the halakha today. You don't have to, like, the 4 cups is a minimum, not a maximum. You can have as many cups of wine as you want, as long as you have them in the meal part of the Seder. You can have them in the magid or in your appetizers course or before Birkat Hamazon. But once you've done Birkat Hamazon, bein shlishi l'revi lo yishteh. But between those 2 cups, you shouldn't drink because the meal is over. Right? You've already done your benching on wine. The meal is over. So it's clarifying for you that the first 3 cups are your normal cups for the meal, and the 4th cup is the special Seder night cup. So for Hallel. So the answer to why there are 4 cups, the boring version, is because there are really 3 cups, and then there's an additional one just for Hallel. Okay. Any questions about the boring version? Great. But this is a dynamic that you get in the Seder all the time, which is really kind of amazing to me, where you get like things which originally had functional purposes or no symbolic meaning at all, just like it sort of fell out to be this way, just because, you know, it's a fancy meal, which then sort of accrue symbolic meaning over time. Another example of this is the reclining. That like reclining was not a remarkable part of the Seder. There are a bunch of medieval authorities who are like, why are we reclining at Seder night? It doesn't make any sense. Like for them, that was a normal part of their meal. Why are we going out of our way to recline? To show our freedom, we should be sitting up straight. That's how we show freedom. It's like kind of bizarre that we should be reclining at all. And then it ended up in a question in our Manish Tana about, reclining, such an unusual thing. Which is, again, like wasn't unusual for them. So you get a lot of things like that, which sort of accrue symbolic meaning over time, and the 4 cups is a really great example of that process. And the other thing I want to say is, like, I think if you were to like sort of translate the Mishnah's requirement for 4 cups, even for the poorest of Israel, to today, it would basically be like, make sure there is a cup of wine at your meal, like a glass of wine, a bottle of wine. Make sure it's a fancy thing. There's 3 sets of cutlery and a nice plates, and you bring out your nice china and whatever, or you and you have a bottle of wine. That's what they're trying to say in this first slide, is everyone should have the ability to have a fancy meal to show, to celebrate your freedom. I'm seeing SC twice now. That's very exciting. Okay. Anyway. Okay, great. Okay, so that's the boring answer. Now we're going to get to the exciting answer. So by the time you get to the Yerushalmi, which is already like 150 years or something away from the Mishnah, so 200 years, dining customs have totally changed, and they no longer understand why there would be 3 cups, let alone 4 cups. There's they don't dine in the same way, and so therefore they're in a different space. And you can see the kind of different space they're in because of the kinds of questions they ask that the Mishnah never would have thought to ask. So for example, over here, Kamahu shiuran shalakosot. What's the measure of the cups? Mishnah never asked that question. Wasn't interesting to the Mishnah because you know how much you want to drink in a meal. It's just about drinking in a meal. It's not about fulfilling a ritual requirement. The Yerushalmi doesn't know that that's normally a part of the meal, and so therefore it has to work out, this ritual requirement. Well, it's got to have a minimum. What is it? Okay? And it just keeps on going like this. Mahu lishtotan becherech echad. Can you drink all the cups at once? Well, the Mishnah doesn't make any sense for that. What do you mean? You have one in your appetizer with a kiddush, one in your main course, and one for Birkat Hamazon. Why would you drink them all at once? It makes literally no sense, right? The only way this question makes sense is if you think they have a requirement to drink 4 cups that's independent of the structure of the meal. Similarly, ma'u mufusakin. What can you split up the amount between multiple cups? Can you drink a little bit? By the way, the answer to most of these questions is yes. Just saying. If you're wondering, I'm not sure if the Yerushalmi carries the halacha for today, but there you go. If you're wondering, the Yerushalmi has a very sort of expansive idea about what is ritually required. That's right here. Tir revia, whatever that is. How did I translate it? Quart. Okay, great. Some Roman measurement, some Latin measurement. I don't know. Okay. Mahu letzeit b'yayin shalosh shvi'it. Can you fulfill your obligation with sabbatical wine? What's the question about sabbatical wine? What's the problem with wine of sabbatical year? Who owns sabbatical produce?
The non-Jews.
Well, no one.
No one.
Yeah, it's totally ownerless. So the question is, do you have to own the wine? Right? Or this wine which is forbidden for you to eat, forbidden for you to drink because it's 70-year produce. Can you use wine that you can't actually theoretically drink? If you drank it, did you fulfill your 4 cups of wine?
No.
Yes. The answer is yes. I know, it might be surprising, but yeah, if you drank 4 cups of wine in Shvi, according to the Yerushalmi, cups of wine that were forbidden to you, you have fulfilled you don't have to have more cups of wine, you're done. You still might be punished for eating Shvi produce, that might be a separate thing, but you don't have to redo your obligation on Pesach. Okay. Similarly, it keeps going. Mahu latzeit bakunditon, which is a kind of spiced wine. It's a Latin word. In other words, it's not exactly wine, sort of wine equivalents, sort of mulled wine or something like that. The answer is yes. Mahu latzeit bahen mazugin. What about mixed wine, sort of some kind of lower quality wine? Yes, totally fine. How about yain mevushal? Cooked wine? Yes, also fine. So this whole framework only makes sense in this kind of very ritualized context. So you can already see how far we've gone from the Mishnah just from the way they ask these questions. There's no way you would come up with these questions if you thought of the cups as primarily functional parts of the meal and not ritual requirements. Okay, this is exactly how the rabbinic mind works. Something starts off as basically a totally just normal thing that you would do, and then it becomes canonized as ritual, and then people are okay, but what's the minimum, what's the maximum, what are the limit cases, etc. Okay, so I've actually rearranged the sugya. I think this part of the sugya comes first chronologically in the Talmud, which is why it's labeled 1 and not 2. and why the first part was labeled 2, I believe. But I wanted you to see that, just so this sort of like illustrates how far they've come, and now you'll see how they try and deal with this symbolic question. Okay, now we have this ritualized requirement to drink 4 cups that's independent of any reality of your meal. Why do they exist? Why do you do these 4 cups? Okay, so now these are the interesting answers. From where do we derive the 4 cups? So we're going to have 4 different answers, which is pretty fitting. Rabbi Yochanan b'shem Rabbi Benaya, Keneged Arba Ulot, to correspond to the 4 redemptions, the 4 verbs of redemption. So who has heard this explanation of the 4 cups before?
In the Haggadah, right?
Is it in the Haggadah? It's not in the Haggadah, I don't think.
I think, isn't it in the Haggadah? No?
This verse, I think, is in the Haggadah in various places, but it's not.
Okay.
It's not directly related to the 4 cups.
Ah.
Not in the traditional text of the Haggadah. I'm sure many Haggadot tell you that this is the reason that we drink 4 cups, because of these 4 verbs of redemption. Yeah, this is definitely the most famous of these responses. It goes to the Bavli. This becomes like basically the answer that everybody gives. But there are actually 3 others here. So let's play this one out for a second. So the verse they're talking about is Lachein emor levnei Yisrael ani Adonai v'hotzeti etchem, etc. V'lakachti etchem li la'am, etc. The 4 verbs are v'hotzeti, I brought them out. V'hitzalti, v'hotzeti, I will bring you out. V'hitzalti, I will save you. V'ga'alti, I will redeem you. V'lakachti, I will take you. Okay, so I actually have the context of the verses over here. If you want to see the full context, you can also find it on Sefaria. Okay, so what's this Seder about? Let's take a second to talk about what's the message of this Seder, where like the structure of the Seder as the 4 cups sort of unfold is about the 4 verbs of redemption. What is the Seder about?
God redeeming us.
Where and when?
In Egypt.
Great. So the
And
historical redemption in Egypt. Sorry?
And then through the Exodus to at the end in taking us into Israel. So across the full 40-year time span, I guess.
Yes, though what's the last, let's just be clear, what's the last verb in the 4?
I will bring.
No, it's I will take you to be my people.
Take you.
So then it had to be before the 10 Commandments were given.
Right, that's right. It seems to be. It seems like it's referring to something like Sinai. Yeah, exactly. Like there's some kind of ceremony where we will like you'll be my people and I'll be your God. We'll like be fixed together. But crucially, you see this over here. That's the word, that last verb that you instinctively found then, which is the last verb in this passage. I will bring you, the heveti. So there's actually a 5th verb in this passage, which is not part of the story of the Seder. Right? So what does it mean to say that you're missing out this last stage? I will bring you into the land. Because this is the logical ending of the story, right? The whole point of the story is that God is going to take us to the land of Israel. So why would you tell a story without its ending?
That's the 5th one.
Okay, great. So people connect this to the 5th cup of Eliyahu, right? Because we're not redeemed yet, totally. Someday we will be redeemed and we'll get back to the land of Israel. So this is the scriptural hook you have for the Kos Eliyahu. There's no historical evidence that it grew out of you can't say that the reason we have Kos Eliyahu is because there is a 5th verb in the verses. The opposite is true. There was already a Kos Eliyahu, and then somebody found a 5th verse to hook it onto. That's the historical development. But nonetheless, very nice and interesting. So you're basically sort of celebrating the fact that yeah, we were redeemed, but the redemption is not totally complete, right? You might even say that in the diaspora, this is just false, right? God has not brought us into the land. We're here. So like it would be odd to celebrate that story, which is no longer true. Like we were there for a while and now we're not there anymore. So it's like de-emphasizing the geographical part and emphasizing the religious part, right? The religious commitment. Think about this another way. If the cups represent, if each cup represents one verb, what's the story of the Seder as the Seder night unfolds? Right, the first cup is, you know, the first cup with Kiddush, I will bring you out. The second cup with the meal, I will save you. The third cup with Birkat Mazon, I will redeem you. And the fourth cup with Hallel, I will take you.
Then how did they get to Eliyahu's cup, which is in Eliyahu's cup, we open up the door and we bring other people in, and that doesn't mean going into the land.
Yes, right, exactly. That's so. Yeah, it's not a perfect match, which is how one of the reasons you can know that the Kos Eliyahu is independent of that fifth verb. The origin of Kos Eliyahu I don't know of. I'm not sure if it's totally known. I do know that in Gaonic times, in like the sort of 9th, 10th, 11th centuries in Babylon, they were arguing about whether they should be a fifth cup at Seder. But that seems to be also independent of the Kos Eliyahu. Kos Eliyahu comes up later in the Middle Ages. So it's unclear exactly the origin to me. Yeah, but I think like the experience of this Seder, as you like get through each cup, you're like living through, you're reenacting the redemption from Egypt. You're like living through it happening, right? You're like moving through the stages. We took out of Egypt. God saved us from the Egyptians. God redeemed us and took us out, and then chose us to be God's people. So it's like you're really sort of an experiential Seder, I think, right? So this is the classic one, probably because it also fits best with the text of our Haggadah, right? The text of the Haggadah. Who's the hero of the Haggadah?
God.
Well, who's not the hero of the Haggadah?
God.
Yeah, God
Moses
is the hero. Moses is not the hero. Yeah. So this jives very well with that, because this is all very God focused. God is the one who saved us totally. God brought us out of Egypt. Very consonant with the text of our Haggadah. So it makes sense that this would become the most commonly used explanation, but in fact, the others are also great. Okay, so that's explanation number one. Explanation number two. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Amar, Kneged Arba'a Kosot Shel Paro. So what are the cups of Pharaoh? He's going to give the four examples. Kos Paro biadi, ve'eshchat otam el kos Paro, ve'etein et kos al yad Paro, ve'natata kos Paro biado. So what is this? What are these verses from? Let's find out. Dun, 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 dun. So there's the famous place with Pharaoh and his cups is the cupbearer's dream. And it turns out that the words kos paro appear 4 times in the dream. Crazy. Who would have predicted? So yeah, how does this make any sense? What is this Seder about? Like, what is going on here? Why would you connect the 4 cups of the Seder to the 4 cups of Joseph interpreting the cupbearer's dream? Like, why a Pharaoh in the time of Joseph? Why would you connect these 2 things?
Because Pharaoh is the ultimate example of luxury.
Great. So in other words, who are we at Seder night? In that reading,
The luxurious.
Pharaoh-ish.
yeah, we're actually Pharaoh. We like not only did God save us from Pharaoh and destroyed Pharaoh and the entire Egyptian economy and livelihood and many lives? Like, we are now free, which means we get to be Pharaoh now, right? It's sort of like revenge fantasy in that sense. Like, we're the kings, we're free, you know, we get to celebrate our freedom now. We are Pharaoh. Where's Pharaoh anyway? Dead. Centuries dead. Here we are, drinking our cups of wine. Great. So we're all kings, essentially. Good. That's definitely one good reading here. There's at least some other readings you could have. Who else could we be based on this parable, based on this connection between the cups of Pharaoh's, the cupbearer's dream, and the cups of the Seder? Who are the other characters involved? Or put it another way, who is redeemed as a result of this dream?
The cupbearer.
Right. So if it's celebrating a redemption, maybe it's we're the cupbearer then instead of Pharaoh, right? Maybe we are like living through a dream during the Seder, like that we're living through the cupbearer's dream. You know, with each cup, we sort of go through our dream of redemption, and then we sort of wake up at the end knowing the redemption is coming, when we'll be freed from our prison. In other words, that would not be about historical redemption. That would be about current redemption, right? We're currently in prison. We need to be redeemed. The 4 cups of Pharaoh are our steps to redemption through the dream.
Even though it wasn't directly about us.
Right. I mean, you could also say maybe it's Joseph. Maybe we're Joseph, right? Joseph was also redeemed as a result of the cupbearer's dream.
Right. Certainly not the baker's dream.
Yes, exactly.
Except that our obsession with bread connected.
Well, maybe that's why there's no bread. We don't want to be the baker.
Right.
We want to be the cupbearer. We have cups of wine and no bread. Yeah. Okay. Great. How do you feel about this Seder versus the last kind of Seder? What's the kind of different feeling about this Seder versus the last one about the historical redemption from Egypt? Which version like resonates more with you, or like is like weirder or more interesting, or like, yeah?
So I guess I have just I don't connect. It feels weird to say that we're Pharaoh, and the cupbearer, it feels like this kind of redemption feels a little bit fuzzier. Like I'd almost rather lean into the like Pharaoh as the epitome of luxury, and so it's all about the luxury.
That's interesting. It feels fuzzy. That's interesting. In some ways, I think for me, it's more concrete than redemption from the Exodus. Like this is like I can't really imagine what it was like to be in Egypt and to be in slavery and to be freed by God's self. But I can imagine what it's like to be in prison. So in some ways it seems to, and I can imagine what it means to be freed out of that prison. In fact, we're all a little bit in a prison right now. And when we are freed from it, we will feel pretty great. But that's interesting. For me, I had the opposite reaction, which is this feels much more concrete and much more sort of relatable than the large scale God's hands reaching down and like smiting. Right. This also, by the way, is like the reason the cupbearer is saved is is because Joseph decided to interpret his dream. It's like Joseph did like a small favor for him. The cupbearer then does a larger favor for him and gets him out of jail later on after he forgets about him for a while. It's much more like on the small scale. And the first one, which is about this historical, sweeping national redemption, political struggle between Egypt and Israel. Yeah. So again, this seems more like personal and smaller to me. Great. Okay, let's spend some time on the next one. Okay. Rabbi Levi Amar Keneged Arba Malchuyot. It's the 4 cups represent the 4 kingdoms. So what are the 4 kingdoms? Anyone heard of the 4 kingdoms? Either of you heard about this?
Assyria.
Yeah, well, so it depends on which list you're in. Different people will count different kingdoms, depending on which period you're in. But the original sense of this is in the book of Daniel. He talks about 4 monstrous beasts that represent 4 kingdoms that will rise and then fall before the end of the world, before the coming of the Mashiach. So they're normally Bavel, Persia, Greece, and Rome. Those are the normal list, but really, depending on your time period, you might have different lists, depending on who you think the great kingdoms are. But the principle of the 4 kingdoms is there will be 4 kingdoms in the world before the world to come, before the Mashiach comes and the whole world order changes. So now, every cup you drink is like another kingdom fallen, right? Right. The first cup, you do Kiddush, bam, there goes Bavel. You do the meal, there goes Persia. What's this Seder about?
Well, freedom, but in a different freedom in modern times. I mean, like, as opposed to, Egypt.
Right. Freedom from what and who?
From their oppressors.
Right. From the current
I mean,
kingdom
the ones who just
we're presumably living in.
Like 100, 200 years before and so forth.
Right, exactly. So probably for the Yerushalmi, they're thinking Rome is the last kingdom. Mashiach's got to be coming soon.
Yeah.
So they're anticipating their redemption that's coming rather than the historical redemption that already happened thousands of years ago. So yeah, good. There's that aspect of that this is future national redemption and end of oppression more generally. Right. One of the things about humans is that we basically always live in the end times. Like we always think that the Armageddon is just about to come around the corner. And now it's also possible that today that's actually closer than it's ever been because we actually have the capacity to bring it about if we choose to do so. But nonetheless, all humanity throughout the whole of human history, we've always been just on the cusp of everything changing. That's just the way that humans think of themselves. So this Arba Kosot, Arba Malchuyot thing is soon the world's going to change. We're living in the end times. This is maybe this is our last Pesach before the world is redeemed.
Well, may have been could be the last Pesach before the fall of the Roman Empire, which wasn't too long after. If this was
true, though
after
the Byzantines also were a bit Roman, and so it depends on but yeah, for sure.
But that's true. But the Roman Empire fell.
Yeah. But that was more dramatic a change in the West than the East. In the West, it caused a dramatic dark age. In the East, it was okay, there's a smaller Roman Empire, but it's basically trucking along. But yes, for sure. I mean, honestly, the Yerushalmi is very not too long after Yerushalmi, 200 years after Yerushalmi. The whole of Israel is conquered by the Persians for a while, and so there is a lot of upheaval soon afterwards. Okay, how do you feel about this Seder versus the other Seders we've seen, the other visions of the Seder? You could definitely bring this to a more universal slant, right? Like this could be a more universal Seder of the entire world order will be overturned. Like you could also read it as a more particularistic of like, we have 4 oppressors before we are free, like we as Jews. But it could also become a more universalistic vision, which is, I think, is helpful. Like one of the things that this happened this morning. Yes, this happened this morning when I was, sorry, not this morning, this afternoon for you, this morning for me, when I was teaching Mishnah Club, and it turns out that there was a servant that was serving the meal for the Pesach offering, and someone was like, "How can a servant serve the meal? That's so bizarre." I'm like, yeah, that's like someone has to serve the meal. Like we're celebrating our freedom, not freedom in general. Like. In the Talmud, they literally say something like in the Talmud, one of the rabbis would point to his slave when it came to we were slaves and say like, yeah, we were slaves like this guy. We're not slaves anymore. Like this would be a way to push against that vision of the Seder, which is in vogue in modern times. But I don't think it's actually a very good read of the Seder. I think the clearest read of the Seder is, in fact, that it's about our freedom and not other people's freedom per se. It's like, our Independence Day. Okay, any other thoughts about the 4 kingdoms model? Okay. Let's go on to the 4th opinion. So the 4th opinion is the majority opinion here. There was a whole bunch of minority opinions, all very early Amoraim, very early after the Mishnah. And now we have a majority opinion. The rabbis in general say the following. And now this text is slightly out of order, so I'm going to sort of read it slightly differently than the order that's written here. It will be slightly clearer. Rabbanan say that the 4 cups are representing the 4 cups of punishment that God will, in the future, cause the nations of the world to drink, and also the 4 cups of comfort that God will give Israel to drink in the future. So, and now we have the proof texts for all of these. The proofs of the verses of punishment are Ki ko amar Adonai Elohei Yisrael. So let's look at these verses actually. Let's just actually forget about this and look at the verses over here. Okay, so this is the first one of punishment. Take from my hand this cup of wrath and make all the nations to whom I send you drink of it. Let them drink and retch and act crazy because of the sword that I am sending among them. And then this one, Bavel was a golden cup. It made the whole earth drink, and all of them drank of Bavel's wine, but that's why they're all mad. So like the Bavel was like God's punishment on the other nations via this cup. There is a cup in the Lord's hand with foaming wine fully mixed. From this he pours. All the wicked of the earth drink, draining it to the very dregs. And then finally, this one is the weirder one. Right, he will rain down upon the wicked blazing coals and sulfur. A scorching wind shall be their lot. That's how the JPS translates it. But the Hebrew is manat kosam, and obviously the kos in kosam, it allows them to do this drush that it's a cup of wine, which is what they say over here. Mahu manat kosam. What does it mean when it says manat kosam in the verse? Rabbi Abu Namar difli potirin, kedifli potirin achar hamerchatz. Not at all obvious what this is referring to. Some Greek or Latin word, perhaps. It's really not clear at all to the dictionaries or commentators what this is saying. But it sounds like this was like an unpleasant experience. When you drink cups after the bathhouse, there's some kind of unpleasant effect that it had on you. So like, what does it feel to the nations to have this like cups of wrath that they're gonna drink in the future? It feels like that time when you have these kinds of cups after the bathhouse. whatever that feels like. Okay, so that's the punishment ones. Now we get to the comfort ones, and this relies again on the way that kos can also mean portion as well as cup. Adonai menat chelki v'chosi ata tomich gorali. The Lord is my allotted share and portion. Again, or the Lord is my cup, literally. This is a good one from Seder Shlishit. You spread a table for me in full view of my enemies. You anoint me with my head with oil. My drink is abundant. Right, my cup overflows. Kosi Ravaya. And the other one here is from Hallel. Kos Yeshuot Esa. In one of the Psalms of Hallel, I lift the cup of salvation. That's 2 cups. Why is Kos Yeshuot Esa 2 cups and not just 1?
Because Yeshua was.
Yeshuot, exactly. It's multiple salvations, so it must be multiple cups. So that's how they get there. Okay, so now you have sort of a dual symbolism for the 4 cups. On the one hand, it's the punishment that the other nations will receive in the end times, and on the other hand, it's the comfort that we will receive in the end times. Like the same drink can be damaging to them and comforting to us. So what do you think about this version? What's this Seder about?
Comfort.
Sorry, I didn't hear that, Ben. You cut out too quickly.
Comfort. If it's corresponding to the 4 cups that God will give us, it's about future comfort.
Right, but also future punishment for them. So yes, on the one hand, this Seder is about like how we'll be like, don't worry, your lives may be bad now, but in the future, God will give us these cups and we'll be comforted. And similarly, you think that they're doing great right now. Let me tell you, in the future, they're going to have the cups of punishment. Right? So what's the kind of experience of going through this Seder? What is it trying to instill in the people, the practitioners? Like, imagine every cup, you're like, oh, this tastes so good, and I know it'll be so bad for them. This needs to be like reenacting the Exodus, but in both ways, both the redemption for us and the suffering of them, of the Egyptians. Right. In other words, like this seems to me like a sort of quite a vengeful kind of Seder, where we know that, like, how come those terrible nations can go around and getting all the benefits they have when we are downtrodden and oppressed. And the answer is, don't worry, God will rectify that in the future. And the Seder is a reminder of that. It's a way to instill in us that kind of attitude. But the best thing about this version of the Seder is what's the significance of using a verse from Hallel? Right? You would literally say this verse when you're holding the cup of wine, the 4th cup. Right? So, like, not only can you live out this comfort, you're also literally lifting up the cup of salvation. Right? You're enacting what the verse in Hallel says. Kos Yeshuot Asa, look at me, here it is. So that way it fits very nicely with the Seder. And also it fits nicely with the Haggadah text as well, in the sense of, like, Haggadah goes on a whole tangent about how many plagues the Egyptians suffered. There's also like a vengeful tone to the Haggadah too, and this actually fits pretty well with the Haggadah text, and also has the perfect reenactment of the psalm right there. Yes, exactly. According to this reading of the thing, the fourth cup with Hallel makes perfect sense because the last two cups correspond to Kos Yeshuot Asa. But I just want to say that it could be that the reason that there is a cup for Hallel at all is because of that verse. Right? It might be that like the reason you have a cup for Hallel and Birkat Ashir is because of the verse Kos Yeshuot Asa in the Hallel. Like that could have been the reason why they came together in the first place. Most of the time it's a metaphorical cup, but on Seder night it's a literal cup. Okay. This is definitely like the hardest to sort of wrap your head around as like the way we're used to thinking about the Seder. And it's also odd that in the way that it has this hybrid nature, that the cups represent two different things, which is pretty strange. And also the fact that it's a majority opinion also is a bit bizarre, as opposed to all the others which are named after one particular sage. Okay, any thoughts about any of those things? Okay, so which version of the Seder is, according to this, is the best one for you?
I like the comfort.
The which one?
Comfort.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, the comfort is what we need this year.
Yeah, exactly. For this year.
Yeah, with every cup, you can think about drinking that cup in comfort in the future.
Right.
With friends. Anyone else have a Judith or Ben? Do you have one of these visions of the Seder that you were like, that is great?
No. Well, I missed the one of the. I wasn't paying attention for the third one, so I don't know that one.
It's the four kingdoms that come before the end of the world. So and the overturning of the new world of the Olam Haba. So it's like you're like every cup like goes another oppressive kingdom. So you could read that as sort of a universalistic redemption of everyone. That like the oppressors will be overturned, or you could read it as like finally the people who oppress us Jews will get their just desserts.
I don't know. I haven't really thought about this. I wasn't really taken by the comfort one. It doesn't really. They say comfort, but it's not really. What is comfort?
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second. That does seem a bit strange here. I agree with you, because this one, just from the actual verses they use. So firstly, they have of salvation. Salvation might be comfort, but it's not exactly the same as comfort. Then they have my cup is overflowing. Well, that seems to be a metaphor about how lucky I am. Not clear that it's about comfort per se. And then like God is my cup, God is my portion. Also not clear what the comfort is there. Well, so what do you think about that? Why are these the cups of comfort as opposed to the cups of, I don't know, something else? Salvation, for example.
Yeah, that's why I didn't. That's why I didn't put that one because it didn't.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's actually a weird problem in the text. Actually, it's a question that one could have. I think you could say like maybe comfort is not exactly the right word, but it is the opposite of punishment. And so therefore they needed to have it as the opposite. Right. Or it could be like the comfort in knowing that God will save us, or that God will fill our cups and anoint us with oil and or be our portion. So it could be that the comfort of knowing that these verses will come to fruition. Or are already true, could also be part of it.
It also somehow makes a connection to Eliyahu, who's coming in the future.
Yes.
right? I mean,
agree.
why is Eliyahu stuck in there? You know, it kind of almost gives an explanation in a way. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, well, actually, a few of these, like once you get to the last two are really focused on the end times, right? They're really focused on the world to come and like the process to get there and what happens when you get there, and that is very in keeping with the idea of Eliyahu, the Seder. So already you can see in the Yerushalmi, like 4th century Galilee, the Seder has already become a vehicle through which you can imagine your future national redemption, like the end of Rome. Yeah, so you can already see the seeds of Eliyahu like being sown pretty early on. Because there's no, I think someone said this on the call on Sunday, there's no natural necessary connection between the historical redemption in Egypt and the future redemption of everyone. Like there's no necessary connection between those two things. It's actually kind of odd that the Seder combined those two things. And this is good vehicles of explaining why that happened. Okay, so that's what I have to say about the 4 cups. I'm gonna do the last thing, which is really fun, which is just some bonus agada over here. So if you're ready for some just like some good fun to close out, so we don't have to end on the punishment of the nations. Let's if you're game for this, then I'm ready. Okay, so this is now. So again, I rearranged the orders of the sections for this class. So this is section number 1. Then you had this whole halachic discussion about the various ritual aspects of the cups, and then afterwards you have this sort of bonus agada about the cups, the experience of drinking the cups. So Rabbi Yonah Kadate, we're explaining Rabbi Yonah's opinion earlier, which is not relevant for this. Rabbi Yonah shate arbati kasve de lele pischa v'chazik reishe ad tzarta. He drank 4 cups of wine in Pesach. His head hurt until Shavuot, which is called Atzeret in rabbinic sources. So not at all clear what this is doing here, or like what the point of this is. It seems like what he's saying is like, what do you mean 4 cups is a ton, right? His head hurt even until Shavuot. Not clear what the valence of that. But actually, this one goes even better. Rabbi Yehuda bar Rabbi Eli. Shati arbati kasve deleli pischa, v'chazik reishi ad chaga. He would have his head hurt until even Sukkot if he drank 4 cups of wine at the Seder. And then it actually happened one day. Chamte chada matrona apoy nehirin. A matrona saw. Matrona is a sort of a Roman noblewoman. Saw that his face was shining. Presumably, it was like red from all the alcohol he drank. Right? Amrale. She said to him, Sava, Sava, old man, Chada min slat milnitbach, you have done one of 3 things. Or shati chamarat, you've drunken wine, or malve beribidat, or you've lent on interest, or migdal chazirimat, or you've raised pigs. So this is quite an accusation for a rabbi, because raising pigs in Israel is forbidden, and so is lending on interest, totally forbidden. Why would your face be shining in those circumstances? Presumably because you're like doing easy work and you're sort of like cheating people out of money in some ways. So you're like happy about how easy your life is or something like that. Apparently raising pigs is easy. I don't know if that's true. Compared to raising other animals, I suppose. Anyway, but obviously he's not going to let that stand. Amarla, tepach rucha dehi'itita. Let the curse is a way of saying curse this woman. Like let the soul of this woman sort of depart. Hada min ilin tzate milaita leitbi. I don't have any of those 3 things. Ella ulpanei shchiachli. Rather, I've actually found my learning, my ulpan. I've like learned something amazing. Dichtiv chochmat adam ta'ir panav. This verse from Ecclesiastes, the wisdom of a person lights your face. So it's actually because I learned something amazing. That's why my face is shining. Now, he seems to be lying, right? Because we just learned that he, in fact, did drink a lot of alcohol and his head was hurting at the time. So he sort of has a playful response to the matrona, and sort of turns the tables there. No, I've actually learned amazing Torah. What are you talking about? Okay. Now another similar story on this idea. Rabbi Bahu Atala Tveria. Rabbi Bahu lived in Caesarea in the south. He showed up to Tiberias in the north, which is where Rabbi Yochanan lived. Chamune Talmidoi de Rabbi Yochanan Apoy Nehirin. The students of Rabbi Yochanan saw that his face was shining. Amrun Kumei Rabbi Yochanan Eshkach Rabbi Abahu Sima. Oh, looks like, they said to Rabbi Yochanan, looks like Rabbi Bahu has found a treasure. He's so happy. His face is just lit up. He must have found something amazing. Amarlon Lama. He said to them, how do you know? Like, why did you say that? Amarle Apoy Nehirin. Oh, his face is shining. Amarlon Dilma Oraita Chadatashma. Maybe he heard some amazing new Torah. Salik Lagabe, he went out to meet him. So Rabbi Yochanan went to meet Rabbi Abahu. Amarle Ma Uri Chadatashmat. What kind of amazing Torah have you learned? What did you just learn about? Amarle Tosefta Aktikta. I learned this amazing thing. I don't know what the Tosefta Aktikta is. Totally unclear what they're talking about. But I learned this like amazing new text, and now my face is so happy about it. Amarle Asvakara Eloi Chochmat Adam Te'irpanav. And he recited the verse about him, that the wisdom of a man, of a person, lights their face. Okay. So what's the point of this crazy story at the end? What's going on here? What's the connection between this and everything else we've been talking about?
Well, certainly about the amount of wine you can drink.
Right. So it certainly seems to imply that they had a lot of wine.
No upper limit.
Right. Which, by the way, is, 4 cups of wine is a tremendous amount of wine. And it's possible that Mishnaic wine was maybe less alcoholic than our wine, or maybe even the
Cups could be larger.
Sorry?
The cups were larger, maybe.
You're right. Or maybe the cups were larger. Yes, right. Maybe they imagined a smaller amount in the earlier period. Yeah, it could be. I mean, certainly our wine glasses are pretty giant, but you're not supposed to fill them to the top.
Yeah, well, you don't tell it to my brother. He's the one who thinks he also has to eat a whole pizza matzah at every time and have the whole wine. I'm thinking you just get smaller wine glasses and then you don't have that issue. But no, he has he has to be machmir.
The matzah thing is very funny, as if because the theory of olives being much larger than
but he doesn't believe that. He thinks he has to eat a whole sheet of matzah.
Right, but I think the point of that comes from the idea of the olives are larger, but I don't know if that's true.
But no olive is that size of a matzah.
Well, exactly, that's exactly the point.
But yeah, no.
For sure. I don't know, I think that this connection between drinking the 4 cups of wine and learning amazing Torah is like really an interesting thing. Like they both have the same effect on you, which is to like make you just like, radiant in some way. And now radiant maybe because you have a headache, or radiant because you are like have something amazing to say. And that's like, in some ways, that's actually just what we've done here, which is that we've turned the cups of wine into Torah. Which is that, like, that's what the Yerushalmi has done, essentially. They've taken 4 cups, which are totally functional, and they, through the question minayin, where did we derive this? Like, they've turned it into this amazing symbolic meaning of Torah, but now you can, like, every cup, you can think about the symbolic meanings that go behind it. You can think about the narrative of the Seder you're trying to tell. Whether it's about our historical redemption from Egypt, or maybe our personal redemptions now, or maybe like the full redemption of the entire world, or the like sort of revenge of like, finally we'll get the reward we deserve and our enemies will get the punishment they deserve. Whichever like sort of narrative that runs through the Seder, like what we've done is we've turned cups, which the cups of wine, which in other ways were just purely functional and had no symbolic meaning whatsoever, we've turned them into new Torah, which you can take away from your Seder. So I think that's part of really the connection here. It's like the turning, like when Rabbi Yehuda like lies to the old woman and to the matron and says, what are you talking about? I haven't drunk wine. I just learned Torah. But well, yeah, in some ways they're actually the same thing that we've done here. Okay. Anything else that anyone want to say? That's the end of what I had to say.
Thank you so much.
Great.
No. See you tomorrow.
Yes, I'll see you tomorrow for Mishnah. Anyone's welcome to come to Mishnah. It's 1 p.m., 1 to 1:30.
So we're doing chapter 10.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
I think we skip 8 and maybe go back to 9. 9 looks to be could be interesting.
Okay, well, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how quickly you finish chapter 10. So.
Chapter 10 of what? With
Of Psachim. So yeah, you've actually already learned most of the things I'm going to say. So you have to.
probably.
Okay, thank you.
All right, take
Everyone.
care. Have a good evening.
Love to see you.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.